Before we get to your scheduled video, please remember that likes and comments tell YouTube to promote our work to other people, and subscribing to the channel tells you when something new drops. You can also head to the link tree in the description to peruse my books, join us on Discord, or support us on Patreon. You can get episodes of Journey of Wrestling and Violent Profiles early, as well as a load of other treats. Even just $1 a month earns you a name drop for being cool. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Greetings and salutations, fellow lumberjacks. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined as always by the boy.
Hey.
In spite of it all, this is the Two Nerds Podcast. Hey, why don't we just start off by talking about who's cool? If you don't know what that means, you can spend $1 on our Patreon. You get episodes of Journey of Wrestling a week early, and we shout you out as cool. That includes Rob, Passion Killer 711, Destrucity, KTL, and a guy from Ohio.
Is he, though? Are we sure about that last one?
See, if you subscribe at the $15 tier up to a certain limit, you can tell us what to podcast on. And those of you who've been around for a while may remember our movie homework spiel on this film.
Where we stated, in no uncertain terms, that we would not be doing a podcast on this movie.
But my brilliant counterpart had an amazing idea for the Patreon, which worked.
Yeah, we thought, hey, if we make the $15 tier, you get to, give us podcast subjects. Why, the very same day that we made that change, we got a new $15 tier subscriber. A guy from Ohio. And his first act as this patron of the arts that he has become is to make us watch his fucking movie again. He is also very cool.
Yes, exceptionally, extraordinarily cool. And you know what, honestly, I could have had to suffer through something worse.
Oh, look, Mandy is not a good movie, but there are lots of worse experiences.
There's a name in my head right now, I'm not saying it out loud. For reasons, capital R. But
right.
I'd watch Mandy 2 more times.
Right.
Before I did that. So let's get into this. For those of you who don't know or want to watch the movie, don't
do that.
It's available on Tubi, which is free.
Free of charge.
Yeah. It is a 2018 film by, I'm sorry if I butcher this, Panos Cosmatos, son of the guy who did Tombstone, among other things. It is a film he said he made as part of like a healing process of mourning his parents who died many years prior. And he never expected anyone to like it.
And watching the movie, I can see why he thought that.
Yeah. The summary I came away with after a lot of talk with my counterpart here is that this is less like a movie in the traditional sense, and it's more like a piece of art or artwork. It is the writer-director bleeding on the page. Taken to celluloid or whatever they call it these days.
It's John Wick on acid.
Yeah. It has that, revenge exploitation vibe to it. It's the problem, and even watching it again, even knowing what to expect, the problem with this film is that it is pillow fluffingly boring.
Every time I've watched this movie, it's been 2 now, and that's too many, I've nearly fallen asleep. There's a chainsaw fight in this movie. This time, when watching this movie, I nearly fell asleep during the chainsaw fight. I have theories as to why this movie is so dull, and I'm going to expound upon them. But I don't want to be overly negative. I'm still going to be negative. The movie is bad. But I'm not going to be overly negative.
The movie is fascinating. I really spent my time on this viewing trying to understand it. And in following this, we watched the movie last night. As of time of recording, obviously, a lot of time has passed since between then and now. For you, listening currently. I am not filling for time. Quit looking at me like that. I watched and read a lot of reviews of Mandy because
You wanted to know. You wanted to know why other people like this movie.
Because this movie blew up because of fan response. This was literally something the director put out to VODs. Was like, no one is going to like this. I did this for me. I have the money to. I have my dad's residuals for the rest of my life. This was a me thing. And if somebody else likes it, awesome. I don't expect anyone to. And then a lot of people liked it. And he went, oh, okay.
In the same way I would if I put out something. If one of our many bad podcasts from the beginning of the podcast suddenly blew up and got 14 million views. Okay. Like, I don't think anyone should like. I didn't expect anyone to like that, but okay. I wouldn't balk. I've also made bad content, and if it got unexpectedly popular, I would also jump on that train. But this movie, there's a similarity to this movie and The Last Jedi, in that both of them are fixable.
If one's intent was to make a good movie, yeah.
Yeah. The Last Jedi is easily fixable. You gotta go through some legwork to fix this movie.
I don't even know that you do. I think the primary issue is the main character, Red, never named in the movie, Nicolas Cage, we don't know enough about him to give him any more than the baseline empathy to a man who has been wronged. Like, so the movie spends the first half, really, trying to build up how beautiful Red and Mandy's relationship is. But it really just seems very mundane, borderline uninteresting. You get that he loves her more than anything, but, like...
This is actually something that you've mentioned a couple times when we were talking about this off podcast. There is apparently this conceptualization of the character of Mandy, Red's lady, who is central to the plot, we'll put it like that, as this deific, perfect, angelic being who Nicolas Cage's character is utterly devoted to, and their love is so pure and perfect. And I don't know what drugs the people who have this theory are on. I don't want them. It seems to have affected your ability to make logical connections to things.
There's a lot of stuff about these characters that I don't know was ever specifically mentioned. And the fascinating thing is, listening to people's reviews of this film, reading them, they all get the details slightly different. It feels like we all saw the same movie and 6 of us are lying.
And the relationship between the main couple, Mandy and Red, is pedestrian. They like each other, which is something you want in a romantic partner generally, as I understand it. But they're not visibly over the moon. They're not making calf eyes at each other the whole time. They're living a normal life together. They're eating dinner and watching bad movies. This isn't aspirational. Or if it is, your life is very sad.
And in saying eating dinner and watching bad movies really makes it sound more interesting than it actually is. I was about to draw a comparison to those of you out there in the crowd who watch professional wrestling. He is infatuated with her the way Jon Moxley is infatuated with his wife, and demonstrates it in a similar fashion, except instead of a lot of yelling, he just doesn't. And that makes it sound more entertaining than it is. They have banal, brief conversations. It is Nicolas Cage's acting. And I will say this, for the film, everything except for making it interesting is done incredibly well.
That is the baffling part. The cinematography, upon my second watch, isn't bad. I never get the sense that I was seeing something the filmmaker didn't want me to see, or that I wasn't seeing something the filmmaker wanted me to see. And that's done very competently. Except for the fact that a lot of scenes are lit very badly.
There was a lot of red, and I wouldn't have gone with so much red.
I'm not even speaking about the red. That's a separate issue. They're just badly lit.
Oh, yeah, it's really dark. Yeah.
Now, and there is a lot of very, very bold color. Sometimes it crosses over into goofy. but that's not normally the case. Normally it strikes the right menacing tone it's going for. There's a specific scene I'm thinking of where someone is holding a Party City green strobe light above a dagger, and it is so goofy. It robs the scene, what is supposed to be a very serious scene, of all gravitas.
But it doesn't go that extra mile of making it so patently ridiculous that it becomes tongue-in-cheek kind of funny. This movie never becomes Evil Dead.
This movie takes itself seriously. This movie's not supposed to be a comedy.
Yeah, not even in the ironic sense.
Like, if you're laughing at this movie, you're not laughing with this movie. You're laughing at this movie. I don't understand why you're laughing at the movie, but good for you. It does deserve it.
I think there's a couple of like lines that are intended as jokes, sardonic though they may be. But like, that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about tone. You're talking about performance. I have read that the entire movie was supposed to be evocative of like 80s metal album covers and fantasy novel covers.
And yes, it is a series of splash pages. It's a music video without a good music to go with it.
That is the one place I will disagree with you.
We've disagreed with this before. Before we get to that, I do want to briefly summarize the events of the film, because we've been talking for like 10 minutes now and have barely talked about the movie.
Yeah, I guess the expectation is that if you're watching this podcast about a movie that's 5 years old at this point, you've either already seen the movie or don't care.
If you don't want spoilers, here's the spoiler-free review. Don't watch Mandy.
No, it's bad.
Do something else with your time.
Even if anything we've said sounds interesting to you, it's not, I promise you.
And when we go over the plot, if you are kind of interested, but you want to hear the plot first, I'm going to say a lot of shit that sounds really interesting. I promise you it's not.
It's not.
So, the plot of Mandy is as follows. Red and Mandy are a couple. Red is a lumberjack. Mandy works at a gas station. They live in a house in the woods. One day, while walking along the road, Mandy is seen by the insane leader of a sort of pseudo 70s drug trippy cult. And I'm going to say something that sounds interesting here. I promise you it isn't. The leader of this cult has his second in command summon a bunch of actual demon bikers. They are real demons. They are from hell. And has them subdue the couple so that he can take Mandy to be one of his many cult wives. Mandy, whilst heavily drugged by the other cult wives, sees through his incredibly shallow, self-aggrandizing patter and laughs in his face. For this, she is burned alive while Red watches. The rest of the movie is Red killing everyone involved.
There's a brief intermission where he screams pantsless in the bathroom and watches a commercial about mac and cheese.
That is the plot of Mandy.
And it sounds this is what happened to us. Someone described this movie to us, and we were like, I don't know what you're talking about. That sounds incredible. And they went, no. It's bad. Trust me. And we didn't.
We didn't listen.
So, enter at your own risk, I guess. Be prepared to lose 2 hours of your life. I do want to say, before I forget, we're going to get into the music here momentarily. We watched this on Tubi. Tubi has commercials. And I found that the sudden interruption of advertisements for South New Hampshire College allowed for certain lines or moments in the movie to hit stronger.
There's a reason for that. This movie's pacing is bad.
It's slow. It's a snail's pace. For a man who goes on a tale of rip-roaring revenge, he certainly does mosey.
And the reason for that is the music. That's why I wanted to get into this. That's why I say the music in Mandy is bad. It's not that it's a bad set. It's not that it's a bad score. It is that it is the wrong score.
I think, and you agreed with me on this when we talked about it previously, for most of the movie, it's a fine score. It's just that even in scenes where it ought to be something else, it still is what it is.
So, the reason the movie feels dull, despite all of the crazy things that happen, there's a tiger who yells at the moon at one point. There's a chainsaw fight. He kills several people with an over-the-top axe that he forges himself before his rampage of revenge. He crushes a man's head with his bare hands because I guess he has magic acid demon super strength by the end of the movie. All of that is boring because it has the wrong music underneath it. Movies have a lot of important parts. One of the most important parts of a good movie is the songs, is the score, the musical accompaniment. Even a lack of score is an important choice to make. The score to Mandy is one long tuba note.
It's a moog, to be more accurate.
That never fucking ends.
It is low and resonant.
A Nolan horn starts at the beginning of the movie and then ends at the end of the movie, and that's the movie. I understand a desire to build a sense of dread, a sense of a threatening aura for your movie, to make it seem as though things are, bad things are in the works. But your fight scene should have fight scene music.
I like the soundtrack from even just a, something to listen to perspective. I think it's very well done. I like this kind of music.
It's made competently,
yeah.
And I would absolutely use it for certain parts of this movie if I were trying to fix the movie. And as a DM, I would use certain parts of the Mandy soundtrack for very specific tonal reasons. They're good for what they're for. There's just large sections of this movie that's not the music for that scene. That's a bad song for that scene because it robs the scene of all energy.
And, there's an argument to be made that ultimately this quest for revenge is fruitless. It's not like it's going to bring her back. Not that these people didn't deserve death, but, this is supposed to be the writer getting anguish about the death of his parents out. It doesn't matter how many demons you kill in how many movies, they're not coming back. So there's something to be said for that, but then there's also something to be said for making a good movie, which circles us back around to he wasn't trying to.
No, this wasn't an attempt to make a good film. It was an attempt to make Mandy.
Yeah.
And in that, it succeeded beyond all measure of success. If the idea was to make this piece of art as it exists, it is unbelievably successful. Mandy's a very unique movie. Despite the fact that I sass it by saying it's John Wick on acid, it is its own thing. It is the David S. Pumpkins. It hit what it was aiming for. What it's aiming for is not a good thing to aim for.
Yeah, if you're trying for success. I mean, so there's that weird argument that, art for art's sake has its merit, and I don't even know that that's weird. It's true. I had to watch it twice.
Yeah,
and I'm doing a podcast about it, and we would like to hit a 30-minute quota. So, there's that urge to sort of give context to what the fuck just happened.
And, alright, so if you endeavor to make the perfectly disgusting milkshake, using all of the worst ingredients, and all of the most rancid milk you can find, and imported terrible chocolate from the depths of the dollar store, to make the worst milkshake to ever milkshake, you could succeed. You could make the worst milkshake that's ever been shaked. That doesn't magically transform it into a good milkshake. And it's not going to make it fun to drink.
Yeah, and that's... I feel like we're belaboring the point a bit. You might feel like we're belaboring the point a bit. But it's a warning. It is a dire... Don't.
So, I want to talk about the stuff this movie does well.
Sure, go for it.
Because there is a lot of stuff it does well. I feel like, as you pointed out, Nicolas Cage, and basically everyone else, minus, one of the bid actresses I felt was not great, Almost everyone in this movie does an amazing job with the material they are given to portray it in a real and human way. Or in a off-the-wall and demonic way, if that's the character they're playing. They do a good job with that. The actual fight scenes, once I took the time to watch them and try and separate myself from the fact that all their juice is being sucked out by the score, are well done. They're fun. They're interesting. Cool stuff happens. Cool things happen. The antagonists do stuff that makes it satisfying to watch them be defeated. And it does portray a sense of dread very well.
And, pain.
Yes, you can tell the person, having found out from White Raven here the reason this movie exists, it becomes very obvious that the person who made this movie was having a bad time.
Well, and Nicolas Cage also says that his marriage of 14 years ended just before he started filming this. So he put a lot of that energy into this role.
And you can see that, too.
You can. You really can. I do want to actually highlight Cheddar Goblin and the bathroom screaming scene.
The best scene in the movie.
And they
are good.
They are the best scenes in the movie because it is the most human any of these characters ever is. Like, it's really easy to criticize this film as being like art house crap.
Because it is.
It follows basically every trope. From people not looking at each other and saying disconnected lines from a place of emptiness to, weird screaming and droning noises. But there is this moment in the literal middle of the film. Nicolas Cage escapes from the cultists. He gets back home. Harrowed, having just seen his significant other burned alive in front of him, having held her ashing body in his hands. And he looks at the TV, and there is a bizarre commercial for macaroni and cheese called Cheddar Goblin. Feel free to look that up on YouTube. It's there.
It's worth it.
Yeah, it's
Cheddar
wild.
Goblin is genius.
And
the premise, the execution, genius. Top to bottom.
Directed by a different guy. He watches it and then goes, Cheddar Goblin, and collapses unconscious. And I feel like that is exactly what I would do in that situation. I would walk in my house and I would look at the TV and I'd be like, oh, okay. I'll die now. When he wakes up, he becomes alcoholic again. Which, I mean, another comparison I drew this movie to was Dark Souls. Watching this movie and trying to figure out what the fuck is going on feels like I'm trying to figure out the plot of Dark Souls by reading not all of the item notes.
Vadi, help.
Yeah. And I did look to a lot of help, as I mentioned before. We'll get back into that. He goes into the bathroom, drinks vodka, pours vodka on his wounds, and just screams for like 3 minutes. And
pure acting.
Yeah, and the film, it's filmed differently. It's a static camera. It's well lit and normally lit, unlike every other scene in this film. It's amazing. And then it's to the second half of the movie with the rampage of revenge. He does have a brief visit with his friend, who explains...
Sir Exposition.
Yes. Carruthers, I believe his name is. Yeah, Bill Duke. Great actors in this film.
Yeah, Bill Duke does a great job as Sir Exposition.
Perennially. So those moments deserve to be high lit. I don't think anything in this film was an accident.
This is the movie this guy wanted to make and made very, very much.
But if
it is the most Mandy that could exist.
If you don't mind me getting into it, I'm not sure how much of this movie was as on purpose as some people think it was. I think the chief reason this movie blew up is that it is an empty vessel. It is beautiful. It is stunning. It is relatable. But there's so little going on that one can project almost anything onto it. I had to have read at least 8 or watched reviews, and none of them agreed on what the core theme of this movie was.
which is hilarious to me, because the movie's not complicated.
No, ultimately, I don't think so either. I came up with my own stupid theories, but I understand it. Ultimately, it's just about a guy getting revenge.
It's just a revenge. It's just a revenge flick.
That looks neat.
Guy wronged, go out, kill people who wrong him. This is John Wick. I Spit on Your Grave, like 9 other Nicolas Cage movies.
It is Commando, but not as funny. A movie which the director's father worked on.
It's not a complex film. This is not. I swear to you, it is not a complex movie. There is not a deeper meaning here. There is not a deeper message to be had. The movie has the trappings of a movie with a deeper meaning and message. I will agree. It does not actually manage to convey any deeper meaning because the happenings in the movie are nonsense.
And that's part of why I think it is also so compelling for people want to riddle solve on this, is that the parts don't quite fit together. We are missing something. You can deduce through the opening scene in which Red refuses a drink and the fact that he has emergency bathroom sink vodka that he is an alcoholic in recovery.
You can deduce through his scene with Professor Exposition, I've upgraded him, that he has some manner of violent past, which he had put to the side to become a lumberjack for the sake of his lady and for the sake of having a more peaceful life. But they don't actually give you anything there. They give you... It's like the LaCroix of plot.
Yes.
It just sort of was passed near a plot on its way to you.
But the only other intention is that our dear director here, let me say his name one more time, Cosmatos. There you go. There's all kinds of different ways to say it. Pick your favorite. I assume it's the first one because he's Greek, but he hates New Age boomer culture. That very false, we're on drugs, so we're all like free and cool, man, that are often used as a front for, I am going to figure out a way to use and exploit you while I'm tripping off acid.
And you know what? That is a message the movie manages to clearly convey. His vitriolic hatred for these people is super clear throughout the movie.
And earned and reasonable. Yeah, that those kind of people suck.
They do.
Who likes a hypocrite? So that is a significant portion of it. Interesting factoid I picked up while doing my research. Linus Roach plays the antagonist, Jeremiah Sand, who is a cult leader. He was, at least briefly, in the late aughts, early 20-teens, a cult leader.
Oh, so, like, that's why that comes across so genuine. Because, like, he's an actual shitbag.
It's hard to say. I'm not trying to drag the man's name through the mud. This might be one of those situations where he's like, oh yeah, I know all about this. Because if it isn't, what movie did he think he was making? But I don't have the name. You can do your own research here. It's not hard. He worked under an even worse actual shitbag, 1,000% exploitative man, and he was the American branch of his cult.
So he's got boots on the ground, as it were.
Yeah. And I thought it was an excellent portrayal. There's a lot here.
Yeah, I mean, look. The villain in this movie is a near perfectly drawn, hateable caricature of a specific type of person.
He's Charles Manson without the charisma.
I so want to steal a line from Cyberpunk. You know what? I'm gonna. He's Charles Manson without the charisma and impressive cock.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate little wee-wee. But like that's
Brave.
part of the scene.
Brave,
Yeah,
brother.
Noble. Are there any other thoughts that you would like to submit for Mandy before we wrap this up?
I'm gonna restate it. Our podcast is not for children. You're a grown-up. You can make your own choices. Don't fucking watch this movie. There are so many other... Go outside. If you live in a city, maybe go to a park. If you live in a lesser developed area, like the suburbs or maybe rural, just go outside. Find your nearest patch of grass. Touch it.